Have you ever heard a song that makes your heart stop for a second? Not because of its melody, but because it carries the voice of someone you'll never forget. That's what happens every time I hear his saxophone. Every single time. There are people who pass through your life like a song on the radio, quick, fleeting, beautiful. And then there are those who become your soundtrack. Cleto Escobedo was that for me, not just a friend, not just a band leader. He was rhythm, laughter, and light wrapped in human form. His presence filled rooms the way music fills silence, completely unapologetically. And with soul, I remember the first time we met, his energy was like sunlight breaking through a storm cloud. He didn't need to speak. His smile did the talking. There was something about him that made people want to show up, to play harder, to live fuller. He had this unshakable belief that music wasn't about perfection. It was about connection, and that became our unspoken rule, whether in music or in life. Connection was everything. When you spend years sharing stages, laughter, and the messy, beautiful chaos of creativity, you don't just make music together. You build a language that only hearts can understand. That's what Cleto and I had. It's a language of trust, of humor, of showing up for each other, even when life hit a dissonant note. And now, when the world feels a little too quiet, I still hear him. In the echoes of our laughter, in the hum of a melody he once played, in the reminder that friendship, real, raw, and loyal, never fades. It just changes key. You never plan for a friendship like this. It just happens unexpectedly, almost mischievously, like the universe whispering, you two need each other. That's how it was with Cleto. We didn't meet through formality or some grand introduction. We met through vibe, through energy, through the spark of something that just felt right from the start. Cleto was pure presence. He had that kind of warmth that pulled you in without trying. You know, the kind of person who makes everyone in the room feel seen. That was him. He had this beautiful way of disarming you, not with words, but with laughter that came from the soul. It wasn't the polite kind of laughter either. It was loud, contagious, full of life. When Cleto laughed, the whole room tilted toward joy. He didn't wear his ego like a badge. He wore humility like a second skin. And that's what drew people close. You could tell immediately. His talent was extraordinary, but his heart was what made him magnetic. You can't fake that kind of light. Over time, what started as camaraderie grew into something deeper. Late night talks after shows, honest conversations about fear, success, love, and loss. We peeled back layers most people never see. He wasn't afraid to go deep, to talk about the stuff that hurt, to laugh about the parts that didn't make sense. And I think that's where our friendship rooted itself, in truth, not in performance. Because when you find someone who sees you, the real you, behind the titles, behind the walls, you don't let that go. You hold on to it with both hands. Cleto became that person, the friend I could laugh with until tears rolled down, or sit beside in silence when the weight of the world got too heavy. And maybe that's how you know a friendship is real, when you stop counting moments and start feeling them. The stage was our shared heartbeat. Every time the lights dimmed and the crowd began to stir, there was a silent language between us. A look, a grin, a spark that said, let's make them feel something tonight. Cleto lived for that moment. He didn't just play music, he breathed it. Every note that left his instrument carried a piece of his soul, and everyone could feel it. There were nights when the band was tired, when life behind the scenes was messy, when laughter felt forced. But the second Cleto hit that first note, everything shifted. His energy could turn exhaustion into electricity. He had this uncanny way of transforming ordinary moments into unforgettable ones. That was his gift, not just music, but transformation. He taught me that a true performer isn't someone who plays perfectly, it's someone who plays honestly. He didn't chase applause, he chased connection. That's what made every performance feel sacred. It wasn't about fame or spotlight, it was about touching something deeper, something human. I remember watching him during one of our shows, his eyes closed, completely lost in the melody. The world disappeared around him, and in that silence between notes, you could feel something holy, the kind of presence that only exists when passion and purpose collide. That's where Cleto lived, right there in that collision. Sometimes after a show, we'd sit side by side, still buzzing from the energy, and he'd say, you know, music's the only thing that lets us tell the truth without saying a word. And he was right. On that stage, we weren't hiding behind roles. We were just two souls communicating in a language only the heart could translate. That's what made it so special. The music wasn't just ours. It belonged to everyone who needed to feel less alone that night. When people think of Cleto, they remember the saxophone, the rhythm, the laughter that lit up the stage, but I got to see the man behind it all. The quiet, deeply thoughtful, wildly generous soul who cared far more about people than performance. Behind that booming laugh was a heart that felt deeply, sometimes too deeply for this world. Cleto had this way of checking in that caught you off guard. He'd send a message right when you were having a rough day without you ever saying a word. He noticed what others missed, the tremble in your voice, the silence between your sentences, the heaviness you thought you were hiding. And he'd say, hey, what's going on in that heart of yours? Not out of curiosity, but out of genuine care. He wasn't afraid of emotion. He didn't see vulnerability as weakness. He saw it as truth. I remember once, after a long rehearsal, I was frustrated, tired, and honestly ready to give up on a piece we'd been working on. Cleto just looked at me, grinned, and said, you're too close to the fire. Step back, breathe, then walk through it. That was him, always turning struggle into a lesson, always finding poetry in pain. But more than anything, Cleto lived with gratitude. He never took a single moment for granted. Even when things were tough, he'd say, we get to do this. We get to make people feel something. That's a gift. That perspective, that simple joy in being alive and creating and loving deeply changed the way I saw everything. He wasn't just the soundtrack of my career. He was the heartbeat behind it, the reminder that greatness doesn't come from applause. It comes from authenticity. And Cleto embodied that in every note, every word, every act of kindness. If music was Cleto's language, laughter was his medicine, and he prescribed it generously. No matter how heavy the day felt, Cleto could find humor in the tiniest corner of chaos. He had this talent for turning tension into tears of joy, heartbreak into inside jokes. It wasn't about denying pain. It was about reclaiming your light in the middle of it. There was this one night, long after a show, when everyone was tired, hungry, and cranky. The air was thick with frustration. Then Cleto started humming a ridiculous made-up tune about how the catering ran out of tacos. Within minutes, the entire crew was doubled over laughing. That was his magic. He didn't fix problems, he softened them. He reminded us that laughter was a kind of survival. He knew that joy and pain weren't opposites, they were dance partners. He'd say, if you can laugh after crying, you've already won. And I think he truly lived that. Even in moments when life threw storms his way, Cleto didn't drown. He found rhythm in the rain. He showed us that humor wasn't about avoiding the dark, but about finding a spark in it. That laughter became our glue, our language, our refuge. Because when you spend enough time on the road, surrounded by chaos and deadlines, you start realizing it's not the shows that hold you together. It's the moments in between the stories, the shared looks, the uncontrollable fits of laughter that reset your soul. Cleto's laughter was loud, unapologetic, and healing. It filled every empty space wrapped around us and said, you're safe here. And that's what I miss the most. Not just his jokes, but the way his laughter made everything feel lighter. Even when the world felt impossibly heavy, Cleto didn't teach lessons from a pedestal. He lived them quietly through the way he moved in the world. Every moment with him felt like a reminder to be here now, to savor, to breathe, to appreciate the fleeting beauty in the smallest things. He didn't need to preach gratitude. He was gratitude in motion. He taught me that success means nothing if your heart isn't at peace. He'd often say, you can chase the spotlight all you want, but if it blinds you to the people beside you, you've already lost the music. That one stuck with me because Cleto never let ambition overshadow connection. He knew that greatness without love is just noise. One of the greatest lessons he left me with was to show up anyway. Even when you're tired, even when it's messy, even when you don't feel ready, show up for the people you love, for the work that matters, for the moments that test your patience and stretch your heart. Cleto showed up for his band, for his friends, for his life every single day, and he reminded me to stay human in a world that rewards performance. He didn't let perfection steal his joy. If a note went wrong, he'd smile and say, well, that's jazz, a little bit of chaos, a lot of heart. That was his philosophy for everything, relationships, creativity, life itself. When I think about legacy, I don't think about fame or achievements. I think about how someone made people feel, and Cleto made everyone feel valued, seen, alive. His lessons weren't written down, they were lived in laughter, in kindness, in resilience, in truth. And maybe that's the greatest lesson of all, that the measure of a life well lived isn't in what you leave behind. But in the love you give while you're still here, there are moments in life that split time into the before and the after. The day I lost Cleto was one of those moments. The world didn't stop turning, but for me, the rhythm faltered. The stage lights dimmed differently. The ladder in the green room sounded thinner. Everything familiar suddenly carried a new kind of silence, the kind that echoes in your bones. Grief is strange, isn't it? It doesn't come all at once. It arrives in waves, sometimes soft, sometimes cruel. One minute you're laughing at an old memory, and the next, you're breathless, realizing he's not there to laugh back. I remember standing on stage after he was gone, looking over to where he used to stand, and for a heartbeat, I almost expected to see him there, grinning, sax in hand, ready to play, but instead there was just air, empty, heavy, sacred air. And in that emptiness, I realized something profound. Love doesn't end when someone leaves. It transforms. It becomes soundless music that plays inside you. It becomes the invisible thread that ties you to every lesson, every memory, every laugh you ever shared. Grief isn't the absence of love. It's love with nowhere to go. I have so much of it, but even in the pain, I felt his presence, in the way the band played, in the stories people told, in the warmth that lingered whenever his name was spoken. Losing Cleto taught me that death can take a body, but it can't take a bond. It can't take laughter. It can't take legacy. And though the music may have paused for a moment, it didn't stop. It just shifted into a softer, eternal key. Because love like that doesn't fade. It echoes. Time passes, but the music doesn't stop. Not really. It just changes form. Cleto's echo still lives in every song, every memory, every burst of laughter that refuses to fade. Sometimes when the band starts to play, I catch myself listening for him, for that unmistakable tone, that playful riff, that burst of soul only he could summon. And for a split second, he's there. I can feel him. That's the thing about love and legacy. They don't vanish. They vibrate. They stay in motion long after the person is gone. Cleto's presence has become less about where he was and more about what he left behind. He left warmth. He left joy. He left a reminder that we all have the power to make someone's life lighter, to make their world sound a little more like music. Some days I talk to him in my head. I tell him about new songs, new people, new struggles. I imagine him rolling his eyes and saying, "You worry too much, just play." And honestly, that voice still guides me when I start doubting myself, when I lose focus, when I forget why I began. I hear him, his laughter, his certainty, his faith in life's rhythm. And that's when I remember grief isn't a wall, it's a doorway. It leads you back to the parts of love that can't be lost, the parts that live in rhythm, in story, and legacy. So now, when the music plays, I close my eyes and let the melody take me where words can't. Because Cleto isn't gone, he's in every beat that dares to keep going. He's in the echo that refuses to end. And maybe, just maybe, that's how we keep the people we love alive, by continuing their song, even when we have to do it with tears in our eyes. Losing Cleto didn't mean the music ended. It meant I had a responsibility to carry the torch he held so effortlessly, to honor the gift he gave not just to me, but to everyone lucky enough to know him. Carrying his torch isn't about imitation, it's about embodying the values he lived by: authenticity, generosity, courage, and love. Every time I step on stage now, I feel the weight and the privilege of his presence. I play with intention, with heart, with the understanding that music is more than notes. It's a vessel for connection. Cleto taught me that, not with lectures, but with his life. And now, it's my turn to make sure that vessel never runs dry. It's not just about music either. It's about relationships, about how we treat people, about showing up fully in life. Cleto's life reminds me that the world will test you, that grief will try to pull you under, that time will threaten to make you forget. But love, courage, and authenticity are forces that endure. They're the legacy we choose to carry forward. And carrying his torch doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means embracing imperfection, embracing chaos, embracing the messy, beautiful reality of life while keeping his values at the center. It's about letting his lessons guide me in every decision, every conversation, every performance. Every note I play now is a tribute. Every act of kindness I offer, every story I share, every laugh I let escape, it's all a small reflection of the light he left behind. Carrying Cleto's torch is both heavy and miraculous, painful and beautiful. It's a reminder that some bonds are too strong to break and some music too powerful to ever end. And now, here we are at the place where words falter and the heart speaks. Cleto Escobedo was more than a friend, more than a band leader. More than a life shared with laughter and music, he was a force of nature, a presence so profound that even absence cannot silence it. Losing him taught me the depths of grief, yes, but more importantly, it taught me the heights of love, the kind that doesn't end when someone leaves, the kind that transforms pain into memory, memory into inspiration, and inspiration into action. I carry him with me in everything I do. In every song, in every conversation, in every quiet moment when the world seems too heavy, he reminds me that life is meant to be felt fully, lived fully, loved fully. That friendship is sacred, that music in all its forms is medicine for the soul, and that even when people are gone, their essence remains vibrating in our hearts. Thousands urging us to honor them with our own courage, joy, and integrity. So here is my promise, spoken aloud and silently at once. I will keep playing. I will keep laughing. I will keep showing up. I will keep living in a way that would make him proud, not because I have to, but I get to. Cleto's song continues in me, in all of us who loved him, in the notes that still carry his spirit across stages, cities, and hearts. And when I close my eyes, I hear it, that unmistakable, vibrant, uncontainable sound of his saxophone laughing alongside life, reminding me that love never truly ends. It just becomes eternal music. Cleto, thank you for the friendship, the lessons, the laughter, the music. Thank you for being the kind of soul the world needs more of. You live on in every beat, every smile, every melody that dares to keep going. And that, my friend, is a love that never dies.